Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Miami Heat, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The Miami Heat faithful find themselves in a very difficult position at this time. As of Monday, June 30th, free agents around the NBA were allowed to negotiate with other teams. However, no deals can officially take place until Sunday, July 6th at 12:00 p.m. ET. For Miami, they don't seem to be on track to make any moves yet. Following the team being held hostage by Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline and the team's lackluster showing in the playoffs, team president Pat Riley made it clear that moves would be made. The 7-time NBA champion, as a coach executive, said that the Heat would not run it back and also addressed age concerns, saying he's feeling competitive as hell. While those two sentiments were nice to hear, the Heat have whiffed on virtually every offseason move possible. They couldn't put together a good enough package for Kevin Durant, who was traded to the Houston Rockets, aren't in the mix for Jonathan Kuminga, and also whiffed on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is expected to sign with the Atlanta Hawks. With the number of misses growing, fans on social media are beginning to think that the 80-year-old Riley should be fired. Genuinely fire Pat Riley, wrote one fan. It's really sad it's fire Pat Riley till it's backwards, said another. How to be like Pat Riley in free agency. Step 1, do nothing, voiced another. Pat Riley is washed, added another. I need Pat Riley gone. Cheap upgrades we missing out on, chimed another. Pat Riley could have gone out in glory. Now he will be forever remembered as the man who didn't win Jimmy a ring, cost Bam his prime, and wasted many years without a direction, wrote another. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
He has not made a move to this point. They did nothing on the night one Monday. They haven't done anything on Tuesday morning. And I will say this, as someone who has wanted Miami to do something in free agency, since they do have an open roster spot, and at least as what has been reported, the mid-level exception, $14.1 million to their use, I was hoping for something to happen. But I also did say on our video Sunday that I would not expect anything for Miami to do until they actually figured out what they do with Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier. And that's kind of where we're starting today's show. It seems like Miami is more focused on working the phones, maybe making a trade, because there are reports out there that Miami is focused on trying to offload Andrew Wiggins, offload Terry Rozier. They are not looking at NBA free agents at this point in the process. They are trying to figure out what they're doing with their top two trade candidates. And then once they do that, whether they're taking more players back, they're giving out more players and creating a roster spot, well, then they can start working free agency with maybe sign-in trades for restricted free agents or other unrestricted guys out there, like Duncan Robinson coming back or Alec Burks coming back or maybe an outside free agent as well. So to me, we have to start the conversation at the latest trade rumors, which we'll get to here in a second. But predict it for me. Will the Heat make a move today? They have a lot of time to make a move on the second day of free agency, whether it's a sign-in trade, a signing, an actual trade. Will the Heat make a move? Predict it for me. Type Y for yes or type N for no. I want to start with the latest around Andrew Wiggins because he is the most likely player to be traded, I would say. Him or Terry Rozier are definitely like a 1A, 1B type of scenario. But we know the Lakers have been connected a lot to Andrew Wiggins. Well, here's the update from Jovan Buha, who covers the Los Angeles Lakers on a daily basis, saying there was some Andrew Wiggins buzz a few days ago, but I've heard the asking price for Miami was pretty high. We're talking basically everything or close to everything that the Lakers could offer from a top asset standpoint. So I do not think that's going to happen. And I'll say this when it comes to the Miami Heat. I like the Heat not selling for nothing, but I do think Miami values its players a little bit higher than they should at times. Do I think Miami should be trying to get one of a first-round pick or Dalton Connect from the Lakers? Yeah, absolutely. But if they want Connect and a first-round pick plus expiring salaries, that seems a little bit aggressive to me in terms of what they will do. I'll put this out here and say that I would like to get like Gabe Vincent, Hachimura, the salaries match and Connect, or a first-round pick. But I do not think it's necessary for Miami to ask for the two expiring contracts and then also a first-round pick and Connect. That seems like a little bit much. Now, I will say this. There was some small buzz about the Milwaukee Bucks being a team that could be interested in Andrew Wiggins, but that is likely not going to happen anymore after the chaos around the Bucks happened today, them signing Miles Turner, waiving Damian Lillard. They already brought back Gary Trent, signed Gary Harris. I don't anticipate the Bucks going after Andrew Wiggins at this point anymore, but they were connected in the past, so you never know. Maybe they spin the block. But hit that sub button for the top Heat coverage on YouTube. We're 500 away from 24K. Let's get to 24,000 subscribers for Haywood Highsmith. Hit that sub button for the top Heat coverage on YouTube. All right, let's transition now to Terry Rozier. Could he potentially be traded this offseason? And if you see me looking down at my phone, I apologize. I want to make sure I don't miss any breaking news in the NBA while we're filming this video. It's a tough thing to do here as a content creator. But one thing that we've heard is that Rozier could be maybe traded for John Collins. Let's hear what the latest on Collins is. Jake Fisher saying that one name I've heard for the Heat has been John Collins. Utah has been trying to move off of him for seemingly 2 years now. I do think if that does happen, his most likely spot would be Miami. And the Heat are also connected to DeMar DeRozan. Well, I'll say this, and my initial thought on the Collins deal was like, I don't understand this. And that's kind of where I lean, right? But it is maybe the perfect deal for Miami. You look at John Collins' contract. He's got 1 year left, so he's an expiring contract at $26.5 million. Terry Rozier's contract, expiring 1 year, $26.6 million. So it is a perfect Rozier for Collins swap if that was something that Utah would be interested in. And if you are Miami, Collins is certainly a better player than Terry Rozier because Collins is an excellent stretch big. He shot 40% from three this year and averaged 19 points a game in his 40 games played. Now, he didn't play a lot of games this past season, but he did play pretty well when he was on the floor. And the Heat have been linked to John Collins in the past. My question is, what is his fit? Is he going to be the big off the bench in rotation? Because you're probably starting Bam and Kel'el Ware. Collins played a little bit of the three last year with Markkanen, Collins, and Walker Kessler sharing the floor, but I don't think that's a good idea from Miami's perspective. Now, I would be a little bit interested if they traded Wiggins for John Collins, but I'm also not in the business of trading Wiggins for just an expiring. I'd like to get some type of future asset out of it as well. I'm skeptical of his fit if you bring him off the bench because where is he going to play? Is he going to be as effective? And then you're just going to play Ware and Collins together at times, Bam and Collins, it's just a little bit interesting to me. I'm unsure of that. But he's certainly a better asset than Terry Rozier, so I am in on the deal, if we're going to be honest. If you are trading Terry Rozier and 1 second-round pick for John Collins, I would do it. I would attach 1 second-round pick for it. I would, because Collins is the same expiring deal, so it doesn't affect you in the financial aspect of your future, but Collins would help your team better now. He would. And maybe he could help Nikola Jovic develop, maybe a little bit more Nikola or Kel'el Ware as well. I would do it. Attach 1 second-round pick for it. I would think about doing that. Now, the question is, maybe would the Jazz attach a second-round pick? And the reason why I say that is because Utah sent Colin Sexton and a second to the Hornets for Yusuf Nurkic. That made no sense to me. So maybe the Jazz do a no-sense deal again where they send a second-round pick to Miami alongside John Collins for Terry Rozier. I don't know. Certainly interesting, but we'll keep an eye on this possibility. And you got to get your hands on this shirt. It's 50% off, usually $30. You can get it for $15 right now when you go to chatsports.com/heat shirt sale. That link's in the description and comments of today's video. I think it's a sweet shirt. Producer Dylan said it was absolutely sweet. And if he says it's sweet, you know it's sweet. So 50% off this Heat shirt. One more time, chatsports.com/heat shirt sale. Let's segue to the latest around Duncan Robinson, who is at this point the best Miami Heat free agent there is, since they already brought back Davion Mitchell. A lot of the buzz has been around the Detroit Pistons. Well, the Pistons signed Karis LeVert on the first night of free agency, and many people speculated, myself included, could this take them out of the Duncan Robinson sweepstakes? Well, Jake Fisher says not so fast. Jake Fisher reporting that they've been anticipating the hole from Malik Beasley could be filled by Duncan Robinson. Obviously, Beasley has that gambling kind of drama over his head right now. That's the name they've been monitoring in addition to Karis LeVert. The Pistons, I don't think, are done adding their backcourt to their ring rotation with the LeVert addition. And to me, when I'm looking at the Duncan Robinson kind of sweepstakes, if you will, the rest of the offseason, to me, it's either Detroit or Miami. I just don't know if another team is out there willing to do a sign and trade for Duncan Robinson. So to me, it's either Detroit giving him a relatively solid deal and pulling off a sign trade or Miami, where the Heat get something in return. Maybe a Simone Fontecchio is a fascinating player to keep your eye on. He's killed Miami, would be a solid rotation player off the bench that you could maybe even flip at the deadline for more assets at the trade deadline. That's a good idea too. Or maybe you just re-sign Duncan Robinson. The Heat are $12 million under the luxury tax. They can bring back Duncan on a 3 for 30 deal and then avoid the repeater tax penalty, but keep Duncan Robinson, and then that's kind of your roster going into the season. And I'm kind of there with Duncan. Like, I originally said I was fine letting him go, and I kind of didn't want to bring him back. But with how the first kind of 24 hours of free agency has transpired here, I'm fine bringing back Duncan Robinson at this point, because if I was replacing Duncan Robinson, the two players that I wanted was NAW, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, on the full med level, which is what he got 4 for 62 with the Atlanta Hawks. Great deal for them, by the way. And then if you lost them as well, then you didn't get NAW. I would have wanted Luke Kennard off the bench as a shooter. He got a much bigger contract than I anticipated, 1 year, $11 million. So maybe that's something you could look at for Duncan, because I do think Duncan's a better player than Luke Kennard. So maybe he gets a 3 for 33 or something like that. But with those two off the board, I'm fine bringing Duncan Robinson back. And that's kind of what I want to ask you guys. Are you a person who wants Duncan Robinson back? Type B if you want him back. Type G if you want him gone. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And we'll round out today's show by looking at some of the updated top NBA free agents that are still available as of filming. And as we were filming this, a couple moves did happen, most notably the Miles Turner to the Milwaukee Bucks. So he is off the board. He was someone that I didn't expect Miami to go after and weren't going to go after regardless. But we obviously know they could be interested in Jonathan Kuminga in a sign and trade. I don't think they'd go after Giddey, Grimes, or Ayton, but Kuminga is certainly still a target for Miami, and we'll see if they spin the block there. The next group of free agents are all still available to this point of filming. Cam Thomas, Al Horford, Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, and Malcolm Brogdon. I do not think Miami goes after any of these players, if I will be frank. Next group of 5, and this is another move that came in. Yershon Yabusele went to the New York Knicks on a 2-year, $12 million deal. I know Miami and Tim Hardaway have held mutual interest in the past. Maybe he could be a cheap Duncan Robinson replacement off of the bench if Duncan ultimately goes elsewhere in a sign and trade. Mo Wagner is certainly an interesting player. He did tear his ACL during the season, but I would be fascinated by bringing him in on a cheap deal to be your backup big. And then another group of free agents here. You see Duncan Robinson. You see Chris Boucher. Maybe Larry Nance Jr. could be an option for Miami off the bench, because the Heat do need a backup center. There is no doubt about that. They don't have one right now, and maybe they do go after someone like that. Now, as I'm looking at things here, I feel like at least as of right now, as long as Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier are on the roster, a sign and trade feels like the only avenue, whether it's for Jonathan Kuminga, whether it's doing a sign and trade with Detroit where Duncan Robinson goes to the Pistons, or maybe you do a sign and trade with another team. Things are obviously very...
Thanks for checking out the channel. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. What's Kevin Love up to, huh? What is Kevin Love up to? He's sitting there, he's hobnobbing at a sushi restaurant with LeBron James, who's apparently making a stink with the Lakers. Or I don't know, is Frosty with the Lakers? I'm telling you, dude, keep an eye on it, right? Because it's like this, the LeBron exits always are passive aggressive, right? And you think about it, they just sold for $10 billion and no extension talks, maybe cheapskating a little bit. It's like, dude, you guys had you guys had Swaggy P and D'Angelo Russell before I got here. I don't know. A little golden parachute. Now, some may say, hey, you know, we brought in Bronny. And he may say, maybe I want Sioux Falls to develop Bronny. I don't know. But Kevin Love's up to something. He's up to something, dude. He's up to something. Now, I sit here. It's 7 p.m. as I record this. Been a very, very quiet start to free agency. I was like, yeah, should I record something today on the Heat updates? And it's been a little bit Deadsville, even though Sean's went on McAfee today. He's like, keep your phone open, blah, 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 blah. The biggest news we got today, monster extension for Jaren Jackson Jr. and Santi Aldama. So the Grizzlies are getting their house in order. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet out there in basketball land. Now, a couple of things as far as news on the... Oh, one more thing. I guess this could be Heat related. Dorian Finney-Smith, he signs a multi-year deal with the Rockets. He's donezo with the Lakers. And one has to wonder, after all that Andrew Wiggins smoke from last week, that's said to be one of their big priorities. It's very likely they're going to end up with DeAndre Ayton. Like DeAndre Ayton, as soon as he had a buyout from Joe Cronin's Blazers. Gem of the deal, Joe. I haven't taken too much of a victory lap on it because we still didn't get Damian Lillard, and the Celtics won a championship. And, as much as I want to make fun of Joe Cronin, my team's got its own issues right now, but he could still go to hell, honestly. So there is that, but I'm not sitting here, raising my hands being like, yeah, Joe Cronin, your gem of DeAndre Ayton didn't work out. Probably all could figure it wasn't going to work out, but he's so, look, LeBron stays there. He doesn't stay there. DeAndre Ayton is so obviously a Laker. Just might as well print out his purple and gold right there. Will Andrew Wiggins be a Laker? That'll be an interesting thing to see if the Heat will still get into that. If that even goes back to, forget the LeBron stuff, it does go to the Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent type of deal. The other thing that Shams did say of note on the McAfee show today, Terry Rozier apparently, because there was a lot of news today around Malik Beasley, and Malik Beasley's getting investigated by the Fed, some gambling stuff. Never a fun thing, and the Heat dealt with this, of course, last year with Terry Rozier. And according to Shams Charania, Terry Rozier is cleared of that issue. So good news. Look, the only thing I can hope for, if Terry Rozier remains in the Heat, I don't know why anybody would want to trade for Terry Rozier. He had an awful year last year, and he's making a heap of money this year. It is an expiring deal. I suppose there's that. This is exactly how the Heat ended up in the Kyle Lowry situation, and they overpaid and gave a first-round pick for Terry Rozier. Terrible trade. But you can only hope that would be, hey, you're going to clear your books, and this is what it is. By the way, as I do this, D'Angelo Russell, speaking of, he has signed a 2-year, $13 million deal with the Dallas Mavericks. So essentially a stopgap while, I guess, Kyrie Irving gets his way back from health. Now, but that being said, with Terry Rozier being cleared and all, which is good news, the other piece of that is Malik Beasley of the Detroit Pistons. He's now getting investigated for this. And the thing that makes this interesting as far as the Heat is concerned is this obviously opens up a shooting need for the Detroit Pistons. And what do you know? Duncan Robinson, we talked about this yesterday. He's now on the market. And there was a report yesterday from Mark Stein that the Pistons are interested in a sign and trade with Duncan Robinson. Now, there's not much on that roster to trade, but people are saying, and this was my theory of it too. Bobby Marks said this today. He was complimenting. He says the Heat are actually in a pretty good position in their books, especially going into next year and not having Duncan Robinson. But he said that he made it seem like Duncan Robinson's easily going to make $10 million back, that he was going to be guaranteed this year. And that was my thinking too. I'm like, there's no way he's not going to get that. It seems easy, but you would have a Duncan Robinson return to Michigan, of course, a former Wolverine after his D3 journey from his bottom of the barrel to becoming a mainstay for the Michigan Wolverines tournament team. So we'll see what ends up happening with Duncan Robinson. But speaking of reuniting and going to places that are familiar, there was some John Collins smoke today that was put out there by Jake Fisher of the Stein Line and Bleacher Report. And I've always liked John Collins. I've never loved John Collins, but he is a he is a South Florida guy. He went to Cardinal Newman up here in the 561. And, really flourished with the Atlanta Hawks for a lot of those years with Trae Young. Ends up on the Utah Jazz. He's on the last year, just picked up a $26+ million player option. And it's a steep price. I don't really know. I guess the maneuvers, the early moves there would be, do the Jazz want Andrew Wiggins? Or would there be take Terry Rozier off of our hands for John Collins and the Heat? I don't know. They add a second round pick to it, or would they do it for Terry and Jaime? I don't know. I just don't. I don't love the move enough, and I'm trying to figure for him, even with his numbers looking decent last year. Didn't watch a ton of Jazz, to be fair. He only played 40 games. He had 19 and 8. He's always been a very, very talented offensive player. Not the biggest impact defensively, that's for sure. But you talk about adding a little bit more beef to the front court. I just think with Nico essentially being your third big and you got Kevin Love already, supposedly. I don't know. It just seems like a bit of a weird fit. And for the life of me, outside of John Collins is from here, I don't really get the fit. And I do feel like Miami's getting thrown into a lot of these things because people know Miami is in this weird purgatory. They're always looking to improve. Like there was a rumor today about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I was like, cool, nice player, very nice player. What's the role there? Like, is that he's hoping to come here and get a starting role? He was mostly coming off the bench for the Wolves. Is that the case? If like Wiggins moves on, they go in that direction? Like it feels very Kuminga-y to me with all of this stuff. Now, mentioning Kuminga, as again, I do this at 7 o'clock on Monday night. Things can change. I could upload this. It could be a complete waste of time. But I thought today one of the more interesting Jonathan Kuminga rumors that was out there, because a lot of it has been Miami's one of the most obvious spots. Oh, we do have a move as I do this. Denver Nuggets are trading Michael Porter Jr. and a 2032 first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. I like that move. I like that move for the Denver Nuggets. That's a move. And you got the Nets are out here trying to pick up picks. They give up a 2032 unprotected pick to get off Michael Porter Jr. Seemed like he drew the ire of Jokic while he was doing that. But anyway, Chris Haynes said he had a very interesting update on Jonathan Kuminga, and I was wondering if this would change anybody's opinion on it, because obviously, and I've said this about the Kuminga thing, it feels to me a little bit manufactured, i.e. with the other stuff. It's like people looking at Miami, there's got to be some kind of a move there, right? There's going to be some kind of a change. They're not going to stand pat, you would think. Ribbit. But you know, to pay him $30 million a year, just as for 4 years, it just seems incredibly steep. But Haynes said that he had seen him work out in Miami. I assume, while he was covering, Haynes has been doing the Big Three stuff, and seen Kuminga work out, and supposedly Kuminga would be willing to just play this year out on the qualifying offer, which would be about $8 million, and then become an unrestricted free agent next year. It'll be a lot more cap space. Market will be a little bit more flush, and prove himself. And that got me wondering, okay, but would he still sign the qualifying offer, then put himself in position to be like traded to, but he still was like, hey, I want to be traded here. And you kind of get a tryout year with Jonathan Kuminga. And I feel like I've said this, I'd be a lot more into that than I would be just, hey, give this guy $25 million, $30 million. But if the Heat were able to get him for a year at $8 million, and let's just say it's, Kyle Anderson, that you got to give up in that case. Or, something to that effect. Like you send back them a vet, you get Jonathan Kuminga, and you have this tryout season for Jonathan Kuminga. You get to, try it on, wear it around the store a little bit, see how it feels, see if you like the way it feels before you jump into bed with this long-term commitment. That to me would be a lot more logical for the Miami Heat, if that's true. That's the first time I had heard that, and Chris Haynes said that today, that perhaps Jonathan Kuminga would be willing to play this year out and be in the spot where he would play out to become an unrestricted free agent. And then, then the ball's in his court. If he wants to stay with the Heat and it's a marriage that worked, okay, you work it out. And perhaps maybe he earns himself, who knows what kind of a deal. Now, would a Heat Kuminga, Tyler Hero, you got to figure out the Tyler Hero money too. So is somebody going to be left out in the cold? But even then, you'd be almost like, all right, we can figure out which guy we're going to lean into here. But that was an interesting one. I was like, you know what? That speaks to me a little bit more. I'm still not in love with the Kuminga thing. But that would certainly intrigue me a lot more if he was truly, truly willing to play on his final year on a qualifying deal, and Miami could get him at that number just for a year, just a try it out year.
The Sacramento Kings enter the offseason looking to upgrade their roster and bounce back from another disappointing season that saw them miss the playoffs once again. Sacramento started their offseason by adding 2 young players in the 2025 NBA draft as they selected Nikki Clifford in the first round, then used a second-round pick on Maxime Reynaud. Now they enter free agency with some key decisions to make regarding their roster, especially around their big three of Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine. While many believe that they will elect to move on from one of their star players, most likely DeRozan, Malik Monk, and Devin Carter have also emerged in trade rumors. Sacramento has also been linked to many players in free agency and on the trade market, and another player was added last week as the Kings have emerged as a favorite to land Andrew Wiggins from the Miami Heat. For the Kings to pull off a trade for Wiggins, they would likely have to send DeRozan to the Heat, a potential deal, which would fit since Miami has reportedly shown interest in DeRozan after failing to land Kevin Durant from the Suns. Of course, Wiggins was part of the trade that sent Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors at the trade deadline last season, and he played well during his time in Miami. Wiggins would give the Kings another great wing scorer and solid defender who would be an upgrade over DeRozan due to his three-point shooting and him being younger. Despite this, the Kings may look elsewhere to upgrade their roster, and they would likely want more in return from the Heat if they included DeRozan in a package for Wiggins. And you, fan, what do you think about DeMar DeRozan's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.